as she finishes wrapping those up, folks, I'll take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Jason Aldridge, and I work with SingleDigits in our senior living division.
Okay.
I've been coming to Trillium Woods now since this place was built. They were phasing it in all those years ago, so I'm very familiar with the campus. It's good to see everybody again. Some of you folks may remember me if you've been here longer than 2 or 3 years. When we relaunched the network, I was up here on this stage launching it at that time. So have a history with Trillium Woods and LCS, and we're glad to be here. So having said that, I'll go ahead and kind of get it started. I'm going to try to keep it brief today, and I'm not going to try to put you folks to sleep. I'm going to try to not deafen you either. Let's see if I can make this work. Y'all still hear me okay? Okay? I'm pretty loud, but if I can have technology help me be even louder, why not? So, but anyway, so today, why are we here? All of you folks should have gotten a sheet of paper in your mailboxes. I guess that's been about a week ago now. And we're excited to unroll some brand new technology here for Trillium Woods. Okay, you guys are actually the 6th retirement community in the country that has this technology. And we wanted to make sure it was tested really nicely and well before we brought it to Trillium Woods. We didn't want to start with a brand new, untested technology without having it tested before we got here. So, as you may be aware, currently, and folks, I want to stress that everything I'm talking about here today is just for the Trillium Woods Wi-Fi system, okay? Currently, that is called the Resident Network. The new network is called TW Resident. We're going to talk about that. But the reason I say that, folks, is some folks have Comcast. Some folks have a Comcast internet at home. If you have that, this does not affect you, okay? Your Comcast will stay the same. Nothing will change on those. You are always welcome to use this resident network here at Trillium. It's available to you no matter where you are on campus. You have it available. So it's always good to know how to use it, and that's what I'm going to try to help you folks with today. So having said that, let's get started.
Jason?
Yes.
Do you want questions at the end or throughout?
And so yes, thank you for saying he's asking about questions. Folks, I'm going to run through just a few what the changes are in the network. Once I'm done, we'll open it up the floor for questions, and we'll go from there, okay? And I'll work to make sure we repeat the questions for the folks that may not be here today. They can watch it again. So we'll open up for questions at the end. So, pardon the slide got cut off on the left, but it says here, new Trillium Woods Wi-Fi, okay? The old network, as I alluded to earlier, it's still in place, as a matter of fact, is called the Resident Network. You'll see now, under the Resident Network, it says the SSID, which is nothing more than what the name of the network is, right? So if you go on your computer, or if you go on your iPad or your iPhone, and you go into the settings, you'll see a list of Wi-Fi networks. You'll see a guest network, you'll see a resident network, and now, as of about a week and a half ago, you're going to see a TW resident for Trillium Woods Resident Wi-Fi, okay? Everyone in this room, folks, needs to be connected to TW Resident if you're not on your own Comcast, okay? The guest network is also in place, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It's just for guests. So if you are a resident here, if you live here, you need to be using the resident network, the TW Resident Network, not the guest network. And the reason that is, folks, if you'll notice, the resident network is a one-time login. You only have to do it one time for each of your devices. Many of you have already done this. I'm just wanting to stress that the guest network is a 24-hour login. So folks like myself that do not live here, contractors, staff that comes in, or your visitors that you may only see once every couple months, if they come in and they bring their iPads and their toys and they want to watch YouTube over at Grandma's house, they're welcome to use the guest network. It gets them on for 24 hours and they do not have to have a password. The old guest network required a password to log in. It was the same password for everyone on campus. The new guest network has no password. It's just a button. You click that button and you're logged in. You're good to go. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. So it's still as secure as it was before, the old guest network. The only difference is now you don't have to have a password. And if anybody's ever been to a hotel or to an airport and utilized their Wi-Fi, it's very similar to that. So you'll see. So, but for the folks here, folks, what this new technology is called Dynamic Wi-Fi Password. Okay, we've abbreviated it and called DWIP, DWIP. So you might hear me say DWIP, like Cool Whip on my strawberries. I like Cool Whip. This is DWIP. Okay, DWIP for Dynamic Wi-Fi Password. And what does that really mean? So currently, on what you folks, if you've been living at Trillium Woods a while, you're familiar with the old resident network where each resident would connect to the resident network. And then if you had something like a Roku or a printer or a smart TV or an Alexa device, we had to get what's called the MAC address. Okay, it was this number, alphanumeric number. It had colons and commas and hyphens in it. And it's a random number that's basically the serial number for your device. And we used to have to get that number for every one of your devices and get it into the system. And that's how we secured you and authenticated you on the old network, okay? Those days are over, folks. It works well once you get everybody set up, but the setup process for that type of authentication, which is called MAC-based authentication, it's just hard to use, and it's really difficult for the staff. Whenever new residents move in, it's difficult to have those folks connected to it. It takes a lot longer than we would like. So we've really been working on this technology a while. It came out the beginning of this year, this new dynamic Wi-Fi password. And what that really means, folks, two things it's going to do for you, okay? You're still going to be able to do your wireless printing. If you've got smart devices, you can still talk to those devices. You can turn light bulbs on and off. You can still do your Alexa stuff. Anything that you were doing before on the resident network, you can still do it on the new network. The difference now, folks, is that it's secured with an encryption key. So you may remember on the resident network, there was no encryption key to connect to that network. And I'm sure all the folks that have Apple devices out there are very aware that it would tell you it's an unsecured network when you connect to that resident network. And I can explain to you how secure it is until I'm blue in the face. But the fact that it says it always causes some concern for folks. So with this dynamic Wi-Fi password, it eliminates that. Instead, now when you go to connect on your device, you'll see there's a little lock there. Okay, it's going to have a lock there. That signifies that it utilizes an encryption key. And so it is a secured network. That's one thing that's going to help give everybody a lot more peace of mind. The old network was secure as well, but this one is even more so. Okay? The reason why we're able to do it now is because each person has their own encryption key. And what we're doing, we're utilizing what's called a passphrase. So a couple weeks ago, Jennifer and Rita and the folks here sent over the resident directory list that had all you folks on it, and it also had your email addresses, okay? So this email address was put into the new system, and then we sent off mass emails to everyone in here, okay? You may have gotten the email. I'm going to show you. This is what it would have looked like, okay? It would have said, welcome to Trillium Woods Wi-Fi. And then that's actually the email right there. I took that screenshot just before doing this presentation today, and I used myself. So it's an email that comes up, and it comes from SD Customer Care. Okay, that's the one thing that if you have to look in your inbox and you want to try to find it, just look for that Welcome to Trillium Woods, and you'll see it's from SD Customer Care, a SingleDigits Customer Care. Inside that email is a link. And inside that link, when you click it, it's going to come up to another page that's going to look similar like to this. It's going to have your information already filled in. We already had your name. We already had your room number. And then it's going to ask you to create a password. Okay? One thing I want to stress, folks, this password is not the same thing as your encryption key. Okay? This password is asking you to create. Okay? This is something you can make. You can make it whatever you want to. This is just to get your encryption key. And folks, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. We've still got all the encryption keys for everyone. Just keep in mind that this system was designed for folks to be self-service. So sometimes if you don't want to have administration involved, or if you don't want to have to call us to get your encryption key, you can do it all yourself using this password here, okay? So for the folks that did that, you probably saw something like this. You would have created a password. That password is just to get you in to retrieve your encryption key, okay? Once you got into that, you're going to see a page that looks similar to this if you were on a mobile device, okay? The network is TW resident. It cut it off, but it is TW resident, okay? And then notice here, if you can see on the screen, right here is where that's your encryption key, right there, okay? That encryption key, now that's not a real one. Don't try to use it because it won't work. That is what's called a passphrase. We try to keep it easy, and we want it to be secure on folks. And if anybody have dealt with any type of passwords on the internet for all your various banking and your emails, you know how aggravating it is to try to keep a track of all your passwords. You got to add a number, you got to add a letter, an exclamation point, and all these things. Well, it's actually come out in the last couple of years that those types of passwords are not as secure as what's called a passphrase. And a passphrase is what you see here on the screen. It's basically words that could be spoken, but then you change capitalization and you put multiple words that are random behind each other. And it's a way that we can keep your password very secure, but we can also make it something that maybe you'll remember. Okay, that's kind of the point, is that maybe you'll remember that password because it's words you can speak. Okay, so I've seen some very interesting ones. Don't be alarmed if you see some odd phrases in there. You do have the capability to change it if you would like, but you can't specify what it will be. It will always be a random phrase, okay? That's more secure than anything you could choose. My advice, folks, whatever it is, just write it down and keep it. That's going to be your password, okay? Don't worry about changing it. That password should never change. So whatever that passphrase is that you're given when you logged in, and folks, we've got the full list. Everybody that brought their sheet today, if you got one, you'll see that there's an encryption key on the back. That is the encryption key that you're going to use on each of your devices, okay? So if anybody brought their stuff along and they'd like to try, I wanted to take a minute right now to kind of walk you through how to do this, okay? So if anyone has, I know the lady in front had already had hers set up. If you're on an Apple device, folks, you're just going to go into the settings on those devices, okay? You go into the settings, which looks like a gear. It's a little gear. And you go under Wi-Fi, okay? If you go under your Wi-Fi setting, it should give it a second, and it'll sit there and it'll spin on the screen while it searches for nearby Wi-Fi. You should see a resident network. You should see a guest network. And you should also see a TW resident network. You may have to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to get mine out just so I can make sure it looks exactly the same. So I see on my iPhone, folks, I see a guest network. I see an Office One network, which is the administration Wi-Fi here. I see a resident network. I see a Trillium Woods VoIP network. And I also see TW resident. There's a couple more on here too. But folks, the one I want everybody to try to connect to now, if you'd like, is the TW resident. If you click on TW resident, you're going to see something pop up on your phone or your iPad that says enter your password. That is where you put in your encryption key, okay? So whatever your unique encryption key is that was retrieved or that was on your sheet, you put that in right here, okay? Make sure you do put in the capital letters. There are no spaces in the passphrase at all. It'll only be a capital first letter of each word will be your encryption key. Once you put that in, folks, you should tell it to hit OK. It'll connect, and you'll see a little check mark show up next to TW resident on your device. If you got that far, you're already done, because that's all there is to it. The old network, this is where we'd have to go in and we might have to get a MAC address. So you'd have to put in your unit number and the last 4 digits of your phone number, or the last 4 digits of something else. You don't have to do any of that stuff anymore, folks. You just need that encryption. So one thing too, folks, I want to say is because it's so easy, okay, it's also important for you folks to keep that encryption key to yourself, okay? That encryption key is what separates your devices on the network from your neighbor's devices. Everyone here connects to the resident network, but everybody has their own encryption key. So it's important to make sure you keep your encryption key to yourself. So, yes, we'll do questions at the end. And if
I'm confused already. I don't get all it says is join this network, and then a Wi-Fi address. Where am I supposed to put in this unique encryption?
So when you, yeah, she's asking about where to put in the encryption key. When you collect, you have to select the TW resident, and it should pop up asking you for a password. If it doesn't pop up asking you for a password, something's wrong. Either we've tried to connect to it before, or maybe you might be selecting the wrong one. Just keep in mind, folks, resident and TW resident are 2 different networks, okay? They're both running right now. That will not last. We're looking to shut it off this week. So that's why we want to make sure we get everyone transitioned to the new network. So, like I was saying before, folks, this encryption key is your personal encryption key. So it's okay if you've got family and friends. I know I said, you know, guest network is for those folks. I get a lot of folks that ask me and they say, well, you know, my daughter comes, she's here like every other day. Does she have to use the guest network? And the answer is no, folks. And so the way I explain it to folks is if you're comfortable with somebody having the key to your front door, then you can give them the key to your Wi-Fi, okay? That is, you need to take it that seriously. Because if you have devices on the network and you're doing types of banking and stuff, just make sure you keep that encryption key safe, okay? But it is absolutely okay for you to share that with folks that you trust. So if you have kids, grandkids that come over, you can share that encryption key with them. I know a lot of my residents, they say when the grandkids come, the first thing they want is a Wi-Fi code, right? They want to be able to get on the Wi-Fi so they can watch YouTube and play their TikTok or whatever it is they do these days. So, but just know it's okay for you to get that encryption key out. So, and folks, this whole thing is the reason why we're here, okay? Do not worry about this. If you can't get this today during this session, I'm going to be here the rest of this week through Thursday afternoon. There's been a sign-up form. I know a lot of you folks have signed up for it. I'm going to be running around. You're going to see me getting my steps in this week, okay? So I'm going to be coming to visit everybody to make sure that it went well. One thing I will say, folks, as we move along here, there's some things, some homework I would like to say. If you're expecting me to come help you, and I'm glad to, there's some things I'd ask you if you could have ready for me before. One of them is passwords. So how many folks here have an Amazon Alexa device? Okay, that's pretty good. So there's different types of Alexa devices. If y'all are not familiar, an Alexa is just a speaker. It's just a little speaker that hooks up to the Wi-Fi, and you talk to it. You can ask it how old Robert Redford is or what the weather's going to be tomorrow, and it'll tell you. The problem with some of those speakers, if they have a screen on them, you have to understand that an Amazon Alexa device is tied to an Amazon account. And as we all know, we can buy anything and everything on Amazon, okay? So if you have an Amazon Alexa speaker, it's tied to somebody's Amazon account. So sometimes, depending on the model you have, if I change any settings, so if I take it and I go off the resident network and I put it on the TW resident, it might ask me for your Amazon password. It'll ask me for that password because it wants to make sure that I didn't walk into your house and steal that Amazon Alexa and bring it to my house, okay? Because if I wanted to, I could order a bunch of toilet paper and diapers using your Amazon Alexa, and it would use your credit card, okay? So what it boils down to, folks, is that I know you guys are all very organized, and you've got a book somewhere or a sheet of paper somewhere that's got all your passwords on it, okay? I don't need them all. I'm just asking you to have it available just in case. If one of your devices asks me for a password, typically the Roku's, the Sonos speakers, and the Amazons are the ones that will ask. iPad and PIN numbers, folks. If I can't get into your iPad, I can't hook it up to the Wi-Fi. Okay. So most folks use their birth date or something. I just need to make sure that we can access your device. Same goes for a computer. If there's a password when you turn your computer on, just make sure we know what that password is. And folks, I'll stress again that this encryption key that I've been talking about and the Wi-Fi, that is just for the Wi-Fi, okay? Nothing else is going to change for you folks on your day-to-day operation. So the way you turn your computer on, the things you do from day to day, from checking your banking to checking your YouTube or your Facebook, all that stuff is going to stay the same, okay? You're not going to be changing anything that you're having to do on a daily basis, okay? A lot of times folks are confused. They think that because you're getting a new encryption key, then maybe you're getting a new email password or something. That's not the case, folks. All your normal stuff is going to keep working the way you've always had it working, okay? Smart TVs. How many folks here do streaming with either Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime? Quite a few. So in order to watch those services, folks, those of you that watch them know this, you have to have either a smart TV or you have to have a device that makes a TV a smart TV, such as an Apple TV, a Roku, an Amazon Fire Stick. These types of devices will plug into a TV and allow you to stream content, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, you name it. So sometimes if it's a smart TV, it's got to have the original smart TV remote. And so I just asked if you do have that, if it's like a Samsung TV, if you think you've got the Samsung remote control in a drawer somewhere, get that for me, because we've got to get into the settings to change the Wi-Fi to the new system, okay? And lastly, folks, charge the batteries. I know that sometimes when I go visit folks, they forget about the Kindle in the closet they haven't used in 6 months. And then when I leave, they realize that they wanted to get that connected. So tonight, when you go home, just if there's any devices that you think you might want connected to the Wi-Fi, go ahead and get them out and charge them up for us so they'll be ready to hook up. Yeah. I've got 20-minute blocks to see folks, and this is a pretty big campus. So I'm going to be running pretty quick, starting at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm going to be knocking on y'all's doors. Okay, they're listening. Just want to make sure they're all listening. Now, it starts at 9, folks, but I will say I'll probably be here at 8. So if there are folks that it's okay for me to start a little earlier, I will. But the official time slot start at 9 and go through 5 o'clock. So having said that, folks, are there any questions regarding this process or anything? Yes, ma'am.
I'm getting messages on my phone asking me, various residents want to connect to my new, it said, do I want to share my password?
So she's saying she's got an Apple device, and the way an Apple device works is, which actually makes my life a lot easier. If you have more than one Apple device, so if you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, and then you have a MacBook or something at home, the way an Apple device works, it ties everything to your iCloud account, okay? So if you've got one iCloud account tied to multiple things, those other devices are always trying to sync. They're always trying to sync up. So if you recognize the device and it says so-and-so wants to, if you recognize it as your device, then it's okay to allow it to share that password. But if it's somebody that's not yours, you do not need to share that password. They can put their own encryption key in. Okay, so if there's any doubt on it, just say no.
Well, it's scrolling through the various residents. I just wondered if everybody's going to be asking me, or is that a normal thing to happen on my phone? And it's asking me if a certain couple wants to share, if I want to share with a certain couple, and then it's giving me another name of a resident.
Yeah. That's going to be a pain in the neck if that's just going to happen constantly.
Well,
Yeah. Well, it depends on, I have to see it, but you need to tell it in terms, if you don't recognize those people, that means you've got one of your settings set as a public,
well,
we can disable
I
that.
recognize them. They're they're all residents here.
Right, but you don't want to share your key with those folks, so just say no.
Because we're all
You
in
need to
the
say
room
no.
together. It's just
Right.
because we're all in this
Thanks,
room
Jen.
together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think because
And
we're
it's,
all in.
exactly, we're in close proximity, we're all in close
It's
proximity.
just kind of saying, oh, all of these people, do you wanna share with all of these people?
Right.
So, you could either just say no to everything, or just do
And
it when you're not
folks-
sitting with hundreds of people.
And even if you accidentally do that, it's easy to fix. All we have to do is tell it to forget that, and then it'll go away, and then it'll stop. So it's not that big of a deal, but just say no on it, and that way it won't share with those folks too, okay? Yes, sir, in the front here.
I have Echo Dots that do not have screens. Do I need to do something to them?
So if you've got, he's got an Echo Dot, which is what we call the hockey puck, right? The little smaller Echo speaker. One of your devices that you've got, maybe the phone in your hand, you've probably got the Amazon Alexa app in there. Somebody's got to have an Alexa app. That's how they would have set it up to begin with, right? Because those speakers don't have screens on them. So the only way you can do anything to them is if you have an app, either on your iPad or your iPhone. You need to go into that app and you need to find the speakers under the device setting, and you can tell it to change to Wi-Fi. Nice thing about the Amazon is you don't have to, if you have multiple speakers, you don't have to change one of them, and then it syncs the rest of them up. But try it and see. If you can't get it to work, don't worry about it. Sometimes, depending on the model of Echo Dot it is, if it's an old one, you normally have to hold that button down on the top, just a little dot button. And you hold that button down for about 5 seconds and it'll turn orange. And it'll say it's in setup mode. And it's basically like setting it up from the start. You're basically starting all over again. But it should still link up to your Amazon account. You shouldn't lose anything, right? It'll just switch to Wi-Fi over to a new one. So give it a shot. If you can't get it, don't worry. We'll get you squared away, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I never saw that email that you were talking about, and I don't have it, and I looked in my junk mail and I don't have it there either.
Okay, but so I didn't have everyone's. I know some of the emails didn't have, so it's all good. We've still got a key. So I said it before. I'll say it again, folks. Don't worry about that. There's a key tied to every single person's room here. So even if there's nobody there, there's a key. So we've got a key for you. All we need to know is your unit number, and we'll get you your key. Okay. As a matter of fact, we can do it right after we're done here. I can get you your key. Okay. In the back, yes, ma'am.
Is this also compatible with CenturyLink?
So she's asking, is it compatible with CenturyLink? So if you currently have CenturyLink service at home, if you have CenturyLink is going to be DSL, which is not the same. If any folks here have CenturyLink, it's just like I said with Comcast, you don't really have to do anything. As far as them being compatible, I mean, they're two separate Wi-Fis, right? Like the way Wi-Fi works is you've got CenturyLink, you've got Comcast, you've got Trillium, basically at this point. You've got those three that are here. You can only be connected to one Wi-Fi at a time on a device, but they can coexist with each other. But you can only connect to one at a time, basically. So, did that answer your question?
Well, we went to CenturyLink because everything was taking so long at the time to download and everything. Is this going to be faster? Should we pretty much guarantee that?
Well, so the speeds are basically per device on this network. I want to say it's 10 meg per device here. So it depends on how many devices you have. It depends on what you're doing. I could tell you that the 10 meg per device works pretty well for most folks because that's double the speed for high definition content. You can do 4K needs around 20 meg, but it really depends on the device that you have. So if you are not pleased with this base speeds, you do have the capability to upgrade it, but that's something you got to do through administration. Anybody else? Yeah, yes, sir.
So we have a friend who has Comcast, but she's thinking about ending that Comcast, let's say in December. So she just hold on to the letter that she got today and just do this then?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So he's saying for the folks that have Comcast currently, I guess the best way to explain it is that you've got, everyone at Trillium has this system right now, whether you use it or not, right? That encryption key is here. You can use it right now if you want. It's not going to go away. So what I tell folks is, like, if they're not sure they're on the fence, just connect to it now. Just try it. Like, put it on their iPad, put the TW resident on their iPad. They can leave their Comcast alone. and just use it on the TW resident. Like I was telling her, your device can only use one Wi-Fi at a time anyway. So you're in a great position because you have the luxury to basically try it out if you want. You know, if you got Comcast, try this out. If it works and does everything you want it to do, maybe you don't need to be paying Comcast $90 a month for internet, right? Like, that's what I tell folks. So, that's what I would tell them to do, is just try it, just see. But this network will always be here. The TW resident will be here. A lot of folks might use it as a backup, you know, like just in case Comcast goes down, you can switch over to the TW resident.
So she has an Ethernet cable that's connecting her.
Right, she's hardwired, so she's a special case. But this is Wi-Fi only, right? So that would be something, and that's a great question, folks. If you're on the Wi-Fi now, this doesn't apply to you. But if you're on Comcast, sometimes if you've got an older desktop computer, maybe it doesn't have Wi-Fi on it, right? Maybe she's plugged in with a wire. That's great and wonderful, but you can't be on the Wi-Fi unless you have Wi-Fi. So that's something that when we initially set people up, that's always what I have to look at. Say, hey, do you have a laptop? Or, but you have to look at her computer and see if it's a laptop, it absolutely has Wi-Fi on it. But if it's the only time that might be a problem is if it's an old tower style desktop, right? It may or may not have it. You know, most of the time, if they've been built in the last 4 or 5 years, they do have it. But you know, desktops were not designed to move around, so sometimes they don't have Wi-Fi in them.
So forgive me, I think this is a little box, it's not a big tower, but it's a box. So that means it doesn't have Wi-Fi?
Not necessarily. The easiest way to tell if it's a Windows computer,
It's an Apple.
if it's an Apple, it's got Wi-Fi, 100%. It's got it. Apple's been putting Wi-Fi in their computers since 1998, in their desktop computers. So if it's an Apple, it's got Wi-Fi.
So I should be able to go to her settings and find the TW resident.
Yep.
setup.
On an Apple, it's going to be up at the top near the right. There's a clock up there, and then there's a little. You can see you'll see the network icon, but it may or may not be turned on. The Wi-Fi, if she's got it hardwired now, it'll turn off the Wi-Fi. So, like I said, you can only use one at a time. So one thing you can do is just reach back there and unplug the Ethernet cable, and you'll see the Wi-Fi pop up on the screen. So you could do it. I have faith. I know you can do it. Yes, sir. In the back. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you switch to the single-digit system on an iPhone, and you're away from the campus, does it affect use?
So good question. So this Wi-Fi system is only for being on campus, right? So there's sometimes a confusion between cell phone and Wi-Fi. The TW resident is you're only gonna see that, you're only gonna be connected to that while you're somewhere on campus. It could be anywhere here, it could be in the villas, it could be in the health center, it could be in this room, but as soon as you drive out and head on down the road, your phone is gonna switch back over to either your AT&T or your Verizon or whoever you've got your cell phone through. That's why they call them smartphones, right? They're smart enough to know what to connect to. And then when you come back, the nice thing about that iPhone is that because you've connected it while you were here, when you get back on campus, this thing is constantly scanning. It's looking at the air, and it's going to see, as soon as you pull into that parking lot, it's going to say, oh, there's TW resident, and it's going to connect you right back to it automatically. So you just have to get it connected that first time. Once you're there, you're good to go, okay? Did you have one in a white shirt? Yes, sir.
Yes, I have neighbors that have real strong internet connections, so I have my own router. Is that going to affect my router?
So he's saying he's got his own router, which he's got his own little box that basically puts out Wi-Fi. So I'm guessing you have Comcast?
I have a backup.
Okay, so is it a little white box?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, we need to look at that. That's called a hat bridge router, so I need to look at that because it's probably connected to the old network right now. So when we get done here, give me your unit number. I can actually have my support team log into that remotely and fix it and change it for you. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We need to check it. So folks, that's the next thing. I'm glad he said that. Currently, you have both resident and TW resident broadcasting right now. Thursday morning at probably 6 a.m., I'm not joking, we're actually gonna do it at 6 a.m., we're turning off the old resident network, okay? So it's important we get everybody moved over to the TW resident, okay? So that's the whole point of me being here this week. I'm gonna be checking to make sure we get everyone switched over. But if any of your devices, if you're concerned about it, I would say go to your devices today or after, at any time, and just see if they're moved over to the TW resident network. You may still see it on the list, like she's got her laptop there. If you go to Wi-Fi, you'll see a big long list. But as long as it's not the one with the check next to it, that's all that matters, because that's the one you're currently connected to, okay? Yes, ma'am?
What about all of us who have appointments on Thursday during the day?
Yeah, well, the problem is I know, but that's what I'm trying to get folks to try to do it, is do it now, try to do it now, and over the last, so that way when it does get cut off, you won't be affected. But the issue is I'm only here this week, so I need to get everybody moved over to it, and I don't want to turn it off after I'm gone, right? I want to turn it off while I'm still here, in case there's issues with it. So. You need to just check your devices and see if you can get them moved over to TW resident before then, and it won't be a problem. Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to make sure that I got this right. The encryption keys is a phrase, and it's tied to the unit, not to you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because this morning we switched some things over because my TV wasn't working, and with Janice, and I was under the impression that we had put in the encryption key, but I don't think we put in a phrase, and we canceled my appointment for Thursday, which I would want to
Well,
take back
so,
if we haven't done it correctly.
well, so I guess my question. So she's just asking for clarification on her encryption key, and the question was, is it tied to the person or the unit? And it is tied to the unit. Okay. And the reason we do that is if you got a husband and a wife in a unit, you're both using the same key. Everybody in that unit uses the same encryption key. So the next thing you said, you weren't sure if it worked. So I guess my question is, if Jen was there.
I'm not sure the password we put in today is gonna work.
And now, well, okay, so my question is it working now?
It's
Like,
working right now.
then you got it, because if you didn't get it right, it would not be working. You know what I mean? Like, is this a smart TV? Was it a smart TV?
It's a smart TV.
So when you go home, try to watch your Netflix or whatever it is you normally do, if you do any of that. If you try to watch something, if it didn't work, then you won't be able to watch anything. So if you know what I mean? So if it's working, then you guys got it. And if Jen was with you, I'm confident you got it working. The phrase part of it, it's just gonna be one or two words. It'll be a couple of words. It's just what they call it. It's not gonna be a whole sentence. It'll just be a word or two. That's all. Yes, ma'am.
How, if at all, does this relate to VPN?
So she's asked about VPN. You'll still be able to use your VPN. It's like I say, that just goes along with everything else. So if you have a paid VPN service, you can keep using that. No external IP addresses are changing. As a matter of fact, your internal network is not even changing at all. The only thing that's changing is you're going from resident to TW resident. That's the only thing that's changing. Yes, ma'am. That's all basic stuff. Yeah. It's okay. You can. Well, if you see a check mark next to TW resident, then it's already done. But we'll get you. If you want to hang out right here in a minute, I'll come check it. It's no big deal. In the green shirt in the back, yes, ma'am.
We were told then to go to the app store and get one home. What is that going to do for us?
You don't have to do that. That's another way for you to retrieve your encryption key. That app is the same thing as setting up that password from earlier. It's just another way to do it. This system was originally designed with student housing, right? So kids don't want to call anybody, they don't want to do anything. They want to do it all themselves. So that app was designed for that, right? So it's there, it's available if you want to use it, but I know my demographic, so, you know, but that's what that is. It's just a way for you to retrieve that key. Yes, sir.
Is the encryption key case sensitive?
Absolutely, yes. Good question. He's asking if it's case sensitive. It is. It is. And it should only be a capital letter in the first of each. That is standard. Yes, sir.
I set up both iPhones and iPads in my apartment, and I got a message that this device is currently not authorized. Down here is connected.
Okay. I'd have to look at it. I don't know. What does it mean when I don't know what that it could be anything. So I'll look at it and see.
There's a number to call. I spent 20 minutes with someone who's supportive of her.
Oh, and your device had said that? Or
I called the number.
okay. Why did you have to do that? Was it working?
Because I got this message, this device is not authorized. I could not connect to my apartment.
Okay, so I guarantee you, he's saying he got a message saying his device is not authorized. You need to check it. You need to make sure it's on TW resident and not on resident, because you should never see that page on TW resident. It's not there. But if you're on resident, that's the reason why we want to turn it off, because we don't want to keep them both running all the time. We got to get that other one turned off. Yes, sir.
Sometimes it's easier if you just put forget.
Yes.
Yes, because it
Yes.
keeps switching back to my first.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's something typically I'll do, folks. If you have an Apple device, see, that won't be a problem when we turn off the resident. You see, so he's saying that right now, we've got both TW resident and resident broadcasting. And your device knows that resident works because it has been working since you've been here. Well, anytime if you leave the site and you come back, your device is not smart enough to know which one to choose. It just knows to choose one of them. And so there's chances it might choose the old resident network. And you'll sit there and you'll flip-flop between the two. Now, as far as you're concerned, that really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're still on the internet and it's still doing the same thing. The issue, though, is that it does cause confusion between the two. So on an Apple device, you can actually tell it to forget the old network. There's a little eye. If you ever go into an Apple device, you'll see a little blue eye next to every single one of the networks. You want to do that on the resident network and tell it to forget. And it won't ever do that again. It won't do it until you choose it. It's not required. That's the reason why we're turning it off. Because once we turn it off, that will be a moot point. So, anybody else? Yes. Yes, sir.
Where do we sign up for appointment?
So the appointments are full right now. But if there's something you need to see, I've got some time today. Okay, so we need to try to come see you today if that's possible. I can swing by. Okay, so just hang out and I'll get your room number. Okay. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Yes. She's asking about Comcast and Xfinity. It's the same thing. So if you have Xfinity, then this doesn't apply. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What's the maximum data rate per device?
10 meg per device.
Pardon?
It's 10.
And do you know of any streaming apps that might be handle that?
So the only service on the internet that can't sustain a 10 meg is 4K streaming. And even then, it's dependent on your device. HD needs around 3 to 5 meg of a constant stream, which is why we're giving you 10 for every device, right? So even if you have two TVs, they're both going to get 10. You're not going to share.
I did speed test on my Fire Stick. I'm going to 43 megs, but I have a couple apps that were joking on that.
On 43 megs? 43 megs, are you, okay, well, 43 megs is,
Having some of the problems with that.
right, yeah. It shouldn't be pulling 43 megs if it's on the resident network. So I can look at it and see, but if you're having problems with 43 meg, then You're having device problems, not internet
I
problems.
switched back to Comcast, so
Yeah, I guess I'd have to know what your service is, because there's no other services that need that much speed.
Fire Stick,
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at it and see. If it's coming from a regular like Netflix or Hulu or YouTube provider, then 5 meg is actually enough to do everything you need to do. So, okay, anybody else? All right, yes ma'am. Yes. Okay, we need to look at it. Some of those frames are kind of stubborn sometimes, and there's some tricks. Normally you gotta, if you unplug it and plug it back in, it'll sometimes let you connect. But that's a good point, thank you. Yeah, so folks, those picture frames are also Wi-Fi too. A lot of times, not all of them, but a lot of the newer ones are. So yeah, I can look at it and see. It shouldn't be too bad. All right. Okay, folks. Well, I know there was a couple folks that needed an encryption key. If you want to come up here to this table, I'll get it for you. And then anybody that wants me to try to see them today, if you didn't do an appointment, come up and give me your room number, and I'll swing by as soon as I can. Okay. Thank you, folks.